The Edge of the World. Part 4.
Well, well, Geralt.
Dandelion held a horseshoe he'd cooled in a bucket to his forehead.
That's not what I expected. A horned freak with a goatee, like a shaggy billy goat, and he chased you away like some upstart. And I got it in the head. Look at that bump.
That's the 6th time you've shown it to me, and it's no more interesting now than it was the first time.
How charming. And I thought I'd be safe with you.
I didn't ask you to traipse after me in the hemp, and I did ask you to keep that foul tongue of yours quiet. You didn't listen, so now you can suffer. In silence, please, because they're just coming. Netley and Dun walked into the day room. Behind them hobbled a grey-haired old woman, twisted as a pretzel, led by a fair-haired and painfully thin teenage girl. Honourable Dun, Honourable Netley, the Witcher began without introduction. I asked you before I left whether you yourselves had already tried to do something with that devil of yours. You told me you hadn't done anything. I've grounds to think otherwise. I await your explanation. The villagers murmured amongst themselves, after which Dun coughed into his fist and took a step forward.
Ye be right, sir. Asking forgiveness. We lied. It be guilt devours us. We wanted to outwit the devil ourselves, for him to go away.
By what means?
Here, in this valley, said Dun slowly, there be monsters in the past. Flying dragons, earth myriapotens, were-brawls, ghosts, gigantous spiders, and various vipers. And all the times we be searching in our great book for a way to deal with all that vermin.
What great book?
Show the book, old woman. Book, I say. The great book. I'll be on the boil in a minute. Deaf as a doorknob she be. Liller, tell the old woman to show the book.
The girl tore the huge book from the taloned fingers of the old woman and handed it to the Witcher.
In this here great book, continued Dun, which be in our family clan for time immemorial, be ways to deal with every monster, spell and wonder in the world that has been, is, or will be.
Geralt turned the heavy, thick, greasy, dust-encrusted volume in his hands. The girl was still standing in front of him, wringing her apron in her hands. She was older than he had initially thought. Her delicate figure had deceived him, so different from the robust build of the other girls in the village. He laid the book down on the table and turned its heavy wooden cover.
Take a look at this, Dandelion.
The first runes, the bard worked out, peering over his shoulder, the horseshoe still pressed to his forehead. The writing used before the modern alphabet, still based on elfin runes and dwarves' ideograms. A funny sentence construction, but that's how they spoke then. Interesting etchings and illuminations. It's not often you get to see something like this, Geralt, and if you do, it's in libraries belonging to temples and not villages at the edge of the world. By all the gods, where did you get that from, dear peasants? Surely you're not going to try to convince me that you can read this. Woman, can you read the first runes? Can you read any runes?
What?
The fair-haired girl moved closer to the woman and whispered something into her ear.
Read?
The crony revealed her toothless gums in a smile.
Me? No, sweetheart. 'Tis a skill I've never mastered.
Explain to me, said Geralt coldly, turning to Dun and Netley. How do you use the book if you can't read runes?
Always the oldest woman knows what stands written in the book, said Dun gloomily. And what she knows she teaches some young one when 'tis time for her to turn to earth. Heed ye yourselves how 'tis time for our old woman. So our old woman has taken Lilla in, and she be teaching her. But for now, 'tis the old woman knows best.
The old witch and the young witch, muttered Dandelion.
The old woman knows the whole book by heart, Geralt asked with disbelief. Is that right, Grandma? Nay, the whole, oh nay, answered the woman, again through Lilla. Only what stands written by the picture.
Ah. Geralt opened the book at random The picture on the torn page depicted a dappled pig with horns in the shape of a lyre. "Well then, what's written here?" The old woman smacked her lips, took a careful look at the etching, then shut her eyes.
"The horned aurochs or Taurus," she recited. "Erroneously called bison by ignoramuses. It hath horns and used them to ram—"
"Enough. Very good indeed." The Witcher turned several sticky pages. "And here?"
"Cloud sprites and wind sprites be varied. Some rain pour, some wind roar, and others hurl their thunder. Harvests, to protect from them, takest thou a knife of iron, new, of a mouse's droppings a half-ounce, of a grey heron's fat."
"Good. Well done. And here? What's this?" The etching showed a dishevelled monstrosity with enormous eyes and even larger teeth, riding a horse. In its right hand, the monstrous being wielded a substantial sword. In its left, a bag of money.
"A witchman," mumbled the woman. "Called by some a witcher. To summon him is most dangerous, albeit one must, for when against the monster and the vermin there be no aid, the witchman can contrive. But careful one must be—"
"Enough," muttered Geralt. "Enough, Grandma, thank you." "No, no," protested Dandelion, with a malicious smile. "How does it go on? What a greatly interesting book. Go on, Granny, go on."
But careful one must be to touch not the witchman, for thus the mains can one acquire. And lasses, do from him hide away, for lustful the witchman is above all measure."
"Quite correct, spot on," laughed the poet, and Lilla, so it seemed to Geralt, smiled almost imperceptibly.
"Though the witchman greatly covetous and greedy for gold be," mumbled the old woman, half closing her eyes, "giveth he not such a one more than, for a drowner, 1 silver penny or 3 halves, for a werecat, silver pennies 2, for a plumard, silver pennies—"
"Those were the days," muttered the Witcher. "Thank you, Grandma. And now, show us where it speaks of the devil, and what the book says about devils. This time 'tis grateful I'd be to heareth more, for to learn the ways and means ye did use to deal with him most curious am I." "Careful, Geralt," chuckled Dandelion. "You're starting to fall into their jargon. It's an infectious mannerism." The woman, controlling her shaking hands with difficulty, turned several pages. The Witcher and the poet leaned over the table. The etching did, in effect, show the ball-thrower, horned, hairy, tailed, and smiling maliciously.
"The diavol," recited the woman, "also called willower or sylvan. For livestock and domestic fowl, a tiresome and great pest is he. Be it your will to chase him from your hamlet, takest thou—"
"Well, well," murmured Dandelion.
"Takest thou of nuts 1 fistful,"
continued the woman, running her finger along the parchment.
"Next, takest thou of iron balls a 2nd fistful, of honey an utricle, of birch tar a 2nd, of grey soap a firkin, of soft cheese another. There, where the diavol dwelleth, goest thou when 'tis night, commenceth then to eat the nuts. Anon the diavol, who hath great greed, will hasten and ask if they are tasty indeed. Givest to him then the balls of iron."
"Damn you," murmured Dandelion. "Pockstick." "Quiet," said Geralt. "Well, Grandma, go on."
"Having broken his teeth, he will be attentive as thou eatest the honey. Of said honey will he himself desire. Givest him of birch tar, then yourself eateth soft cheese. Soon, hearest thou, will the diavol grumbleth and tumbleth, but makest of it as naught. Yet, if the diavol desireth soft cheese, givest him soap, for soap the diavol withstandeth not."
"You got to the soap?" interrupted Geralt with a stony expression. turning towards Dun and Netley.
In no way, groaned Netley. If only we had got to the balls, but he gave us what for when he bet a ball.
And who told you to give him so many? Dandelion was enraged. It stands written in the book, 1 fistful to take, yet ye gave of balls a sackful. Ye furnished him with ammunition for 2 years, the fool ye be.
Careful, smiled the Witcher. You're starting to fall into their jargon. It's infectious.
Thank you. Geralt suddenly raised his head and looked into the eyes of the girl standing by the woman. Lilla didn't lower her eyes. They were pale and wildly blue.
Why are you bringing the devil offerings in the form of grain? He asked sharply. After all, it's obvious that he's a typical herbivore.
Lilla didn't answer.
I asked you a question, girl. Don't be frightened. You won't get the mange by talking to me.
Don't ask her anything, sir, said Netley, with obvious unease in his voice. Lilla, she be strange. She won't answer you. Don't force her. Geralt kept looking into Lilla's eyes, and Lilla still met his gaze. He felt a shiver run down his back and creep along his shoulders.
Why didn't you attack the devil with stanchions and pitchforks?
He raised his voice.
Why didn't you set a trap for him? If you'd wanted to, his goat's head would already be spiked on a pole to frighten crows away. You warned me not to kill him. Why? You forbade it, didn't you, Lilla?
Dun got up from the bench. His head almost touched the beams.
Leave, lass, he growled. Take the old woman and leave. Who is she, Honourable Dun? The Witcher demanded, as the door closed behind Lilla and the woman. Who is that girl? Why does she enjoy more respect from you than that bloody book? It be nae your business.
Dun looked at him, and there was no friendliness in his eyes.
Persecute wise women in your own town. Burn stakes in your own land. There has been none of it here, nor will there be.
You didn't understand me, said the Witcher coldly.
Because I did nae try, growled Dun.
I noticed, Geralt said through his teeth, making no effort to be cordial.
But be so gracious as to understand something, Honourable Dun. We have no agreement. I haven't committed myself to you in any way. You have no reason to believe that you've bought yourself a witcher who, for a silver penny or 3 halves, will do what you can't do yourselves, or don't want to do, or aren't allowed to. No, Honourable Dun, you have not bought yourself a witcher yet, and I don't think you'll succeed in doing so. Not with your reluctance to understand.
Dun remained silent, measuring Geralt with a gloomy stare. Netley cleared his throat and wriggled on the bench, shuffling his rag sandals on the dirt floor, then suddenly straightened up.
Witcher, sir, he said, do nae be enraged. We will tell ye what and how. Dun?
The elder of the village nodded and sat down. As we be riding here, began Netley, ye did notice how everything here grows, the great harvests we have. There be nae many places ye see all grow like this, if there be any such. Seedlings and seeds be so important to us that 'tis with them we pay our levies, and we sell them and use them to barter.
What's that got to do with the devil?
The diavol was wont to make a nuisance of himself and play silly tricks, and then he'd be starting to steal a great deal of grain. At the beginning, we'd be bringing him a little to the stone and the hemp, thinking his fill he'd eat and leave us in peace. Naught of it. With a vengeance, he went on stealing, and when we started to hide our supplies in shops and sheds, well locked and bolted, 'tis furious he grew, sir. He roared, bleated, "Ook, ook," he called, and when he goes, "Ook, ook," ye'd do best to run for your life. He threatened to screw. Dandelion threw in with a ribald smile. That too, agreed Netley. Oh, and he mentioned a fire. Talk, long as we may, he couldn't steal, so 'tis levies he demanded. He ordered grain and other goods be brought in by the sackful. Riled we were then, and intended to beat his tailed arse. But the freeman cleared his throat and lowered his head.
Ye need nae beat about the bush, said Dun suddenly. We judged the Witcher wrong. Tell him everything, Netley.
The old woman forbade us to beat the devil, said Netley quickly, but we noticed Leela,
because the woman only says what Leela tell her to, and we, you know yourself, sir, we listen.
I've noticed. Geralt twisted his lips in a smile. The woman can only waggle her chin and mumble a text which she doesn't understand herself. And you stare at the girl with gaping mouths as if she were the statue of a goddess. You avoid her eyes, but try to guess her wishes. And her wishes are your command. Who is this Leela of yours?
But ye have guessed that, sir. A prophetess, a wise one. But say naught of this to anyone. We ask ye, if word were to get to the steward, or, God's forbid, to the viceroy.
Don't worry, said Geralt seriously. I know what that means, and I won't betray you. The strange women and girls called prophetesses or wise ones, who could be found in villages, didn't enjoy the favour of those noblemen who collected levies and profited from farming. Farmers always consulted prophetesses on everything and believed them blindly and boundlessly. Decisions based on their advice were often completely contrary to the politics of lords and overlords. Geralt had heard of incomprehensible decrees, the slaughter of entire pedigree herds, the cessation of sowing or harvesting, and even the migration of entire villages. Local lords, therefore, opposed the superstition, often brutally, and freemen very quickly learnt to hide the wise ones. But they didn't stop listening to their advice, because experience proved the wise ones were always right in the long run.
Leela did not permit us to kill the diovel, continued Netley. She told us to do what the book says. As ye well know, it did nae work out. There has already been trouble with the steward. If we give less grain in levy than be normal, 'tis bawl he will, shout and fulminate. Thus we have nae even squeaked to him of the diovel. The reason being the steward be ruthless and knows cruelly little about jokes. And then ye happened along. We asked Leela if we could hire ye.
And?
She said, through the woman, that she need first of all to look at ye.
And she did.
That she did. And accepted ye she has, that we know. We can tell what Leela accepts and what she doesn't.
She never said a word to me.
She ne'er a spoken word to anyone, save the old woman. But if she had not accepted ye, she would nae have entered the room for all in the world.
Geralt reflected. That's interesting. A prophetess who, instead of prophesying, doesn't say a word. How did she come to be among you?
We nae know, Witcher, sir, muttered Doon. But as for the old woman, so the older folk remember, it be like this. The old woman afore her took a close-tongued girl under her wing too, one as which came from no one knows, and that girl, she be our old woman. My grandfather would say the old woman be reborn that way. Like the moon she be reborn in the sky, and ever anew she be. Do nae laugh.
I'm not laughing. Geralt shook his head. I've seen too much to laugh at things like that. Nor do I intend to put my nose into your affairs, Honourable Doon. My questions aim to establish the bond between Leela and the devil. You've probably realised yourselves that one exists. So, if you're anxious to be on good terms with your prophetess, then I can give you only one way to deal with the devil. You must get to like him.
Know ye, sir, said Netley, it be nae only a matter of the diovel. Leela does nae let us harm anything, any creature.
Of course, Dandelion butted in. Country prophetesses grow from the same tree as druids, and a druid will go so far as to wish the gadfly sucking his blood to enjoy its meal.
Ye hits it on the head.
Netley faintly smiled.
Ye hits the nail right on the head. 'Twas the same with us and the wild boars that dug up our vegetable beds. Look out the window. Beds as pretty as a picture. We have found a way. Leela doesn't even know. What the eyes do nae see, the heart will nae miss. Understand?
I understand, muttered Geralt. And how? But we can't move forward. Leela or no Leela, your devil is a Sylvan, an exceptionally rare but intelligent creature. I won't kill him. My code doesn't allow it.
If he be intelligent, said Doon, go speak reason to him. Just so, Netley joined in. If the diovel has brains, that will mean he steals grain according to reason. So ye, Witcher, find out what he wants. He doesna eat that grain after all.
Not so much, at least. So what does he want grain for? To spite us? What does he want?
Find out and chase him off in some witcher way. Will you do that?
I'll try, decided Geralt. But what? Your book, my friends, is out of date. Do you see what I'm getting at? Well, forsooth, grunted Dun. Not really. I'll explain, Honourable Dun, Honourable Netley. If you're counting on my help costing you a silver penny or 3 halves, then you are bloody well mistaken.